What's up, Goon Squad? Welcome to the Week 10 preview edition of the Football Goons podcast. We're thrilled that you've come along for the ride with us this week, as there's quite a bit to discuss heading into Week 10 here. Whether you ate a W this week or you took an L, we're happy that you are here with us now.
I'm already done. I didn't want to be here because you said that.
That's ridiculous.
What, dude.
That made me so mad.
Anybody want to eat a W?
Nom, nom, nom.
I saw that probably like 20 times like the next day. I was so tired of it. But I felt like we had to throw one in here because
Deshaun Jackson's face is the best part of that whole thing.
Oh, it's great.
In the background, just like, what in God's name? Why am I?
Half of the guys were like, what is happening right now? I don't even understand. But
I think all of them were like that.
All right, well, listen, hopefully you ate a fantasy proverbial W last week. If you didn't, we're here to help try and steer you back on track. Before we get into anything else, though, let's open up the discussion tonight. As many of you know, today is election day, so people are out voting en masse for local officials, some governor races and things like that. So I'm throwing this question out to the Goons this week. If you could vote for one NFL personality currently involved in the league to be the president of the United States, who would you vote for?
This is simple.
Go.
This is simple. It's Carson Wentz. He's taking the NFL by storm. He'll take the country by storm. He'll get the country in the right shape. That's a no-brainer, man. Future MVP Carson Wentz.
I feel like I would be fascinated to see Bill Belichick as the president.
No, absolutely. I'm gonna act like certain media members and just say I'll leave the country if Bill Belichick's the president.
I just want to see like how like the political media would handle him basically tearing them apart when they ask questions. Like some guy asked him a question.
We're on to North Korea.
Some guy asked him a question the other week whether he favors those low-scoring, dogfight type games, and he says, "I prefer to win."
We're on to North Korea.
Like, don't you think that'd be fascinating on some level?
Can that just be our new thing? I'm on to North Korea.
All right. Any other presidential votes before we move on?
I mean, I want Andy. Of course, I want Andy.
Can we get Jameis Winston in the White House, please?
Oh my gosh!
I don't think
they strong. We strong. We gonna get them. Let go. You're trying to eat a W.
America strong.
America strong.
All right. Before we get too far off the rails here, we're gonna have to move on.
I'm crying right now. Legit crying.
All right, let's get into some fantasy football talk here. It's the last major week of buys coming up this week that you're going to have to deal with. And for an unfortunate few people, you're going to have some boneheaded suspensions and things to deal with, especially if you're a Mike Evans owner after he came off the top rope last week with a flying elbow. Let's look at some of the most added players last week or during this week right now for Week 10 and discuss whether or not we see any potential in these guys. Now, I'm going to throw this out there right out of the gate. This is a very gloomy waiver wire roll here. So I'm really hoping nobody really has to go after any of these guys. But we'll talk about it here. First up, Damian Williams, running back of the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, Jay Ajayi moved to Philadelphia in a trade. We were kind of waiting to see how that backfield was going to play out in Miami between he and Kenyon Drake. He didn't lead in touches, but he scored a touchdown and he caught 6 of 6 passes. He's their clear red zone option at this point based on snaps. Even took quite a few red zone carries last year. So is there any reason to potentially look at Damian Williams here?
I don't. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of crickets, I think. But I don't think so, and in large part because I'm going to stick to my guns from last week. I still think Kenyon Drake is the guy to own. I mean, Damian scored last week, but they had he's supposed to be the big receiving threat, and they had the same number of targets and catches. Drake only had 2 more carries, but he took them for 55 more yards. So, yeah, in large part, that's due to busting a big one. But I just feel like Kenyon Drake is more the guy to own. I don't think Damian Williams' role is much different than when Ajayi's there. A little more touch, but if you're down with Damian Williams, just I don't know what to tell you.
I'm a little afraid this is actually going to be very Patriots-esque, where like you're not really going to know, because even Williams, he had a big run that was brought back because of a holding call on Jarvis Landry. So, I mean, they probably would have had really similar production coming out of that game. And I think the snap counts are going to stay close. So for those reasons, not necessarily that I think one is better than the other or whatever, I would kind of steer clear, because I don't think that either one of these guys is going to put their stamp on this thing.
Yeah, the snap count actually was really close. Drake had 37 and Williams had 30 snaps, so he only led by 7 snaps. So it was really close. I'm probably going to stay about 50-50. If you have to have one, Drake's still the guy I want, just because I think he's a better running back, but I don't really want either one.
That's kind of my point. I actually do own Drake in a couple of leagues, and he's found his way into my lineup last week and this week due to buys. But yeah, I think my reasoning behind why I think it's his backfield over Williams is Williams has had more of an opportunity to show what he is at this point, because he had this role last year too. You know, he stole some touches and some touchdowns from Jay Ajayi, whereas Drake was kind of the forgotten guy because he was Ajayi's clear, like, legit backup. So I think the more he plays, it's going to come out that he's a very good back.
Yeah, I agree.
And he was caught behind Ajayi. He's caught behind guys at Bama. Like, he's good. He's just not great. But I think Williams is what he is. And the more they see of Drake, and if he can keep busting 42-yard run kind of plays, I think they're just going to kind of hand that backfield to him. I don't see it going the other way.
Agree.
I have a completely different opinion on this. RBBC is hard enough to pick every week and pick right every week as it is. But when the two players aren't very good and the offense itself isn't very good, why are we even discussing this? You know what I mean? Like, I understand that there are guys who are in need in a bye week, but after this week, neither of these guys should be in your lineup at all going forward. Like, if they are,
there's 4 teams on bye next week. Like, there's still,
and they still face some good matchups.
It's the same as this week. No, I hear you. Like, the leagues where I have Drake in my lineup, it's certainly not the plan to have him in there week 12 on.
No,
but you need players like this for the next 2 weeks. Some teams do. If you've lost David Johnson, you've lost Cook, you've lost some of these guys throughout the season, or Leonard Fournette apparently doesn't want to get his pitcher taken, so you lose him a half hour before the game starts.
And lose by 0.29.
You've got to find ways to plug people in, and I think Drake is the one to plug ahead of Williams.
It is worth noting.
Are there people out there that really lost by 0.29?
No, 0 people.
Listen, it is worth noting here, not that I want to belabor this or that I want to crown Kenyon Drake as that guy, but every year we look back and say, wow, player X was on like 85% of championship teams because of a late pickup. You never know who that guy's going to be. So, like, if there's talent there, you know, who knows if he's going to be the next guy that's on that roster. So, you know, something to just keep in mind.
I will eat my Gorb shirt if it's Kenyon Drake.
Wow.
Oh, I'm pumped about that.
I hope it's Kenyon Drake.
Too.
It's not going to be, I promise.
All right, guys. Well, listen, it's that time of the podcast and that time of the season.
Hold on. I got to mute because I'm not talking.
We're going to talk about Danny Woodhead, running back of the Baltimore Ravens. And look, this is really just kind of like a public service announcement here. I'm certainly not going to overhype him, but this is probably your last chance if you're interested in a player who's going to give you like 10 catches for 40 yards every week. So if you're into that kind of thing, then you're going to want to pick him up and get those slop garbage PPR points. And I know Miles has already checked out because he's definitely not into that. But you're probably not going to be able to get him next week because he'll be a hot name. You know, he'll be back this week. So anybody in this room, I know Miles is not interested in Danny Woodhead for the PPR potential.
Why don't we go ahead and let Miles talk first?
I don't think Miles should get a say in this. I think after the season is over, when we're looking to fill some time in the offseason, I want to have a heated, like, hour-long debate about why Miles hates this guy so much, because it doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying, like, he's going to be the savior of your team, but I'm saying, like, if you got to choose between Damian Williams and Danny Woodhead, I'm going to pick Danny Woodhead every single time. The guy, like, all he does is go out there and, like, honestly, like, he's going to come in and give you, like, the same kind of production at this point that Christian McCaffrey has been giving you. And Christian McCaffrey's owned in, like, 80% of leagues. He's going to go out there and catch – he's going to – whatever it is. Like, he's going to go out there and catch 5 to 7 balls a game. He's going to go out there – and they're not going to be huge chunks of yards. He's not going to go 7 for 107. But he's going to go out there and get you 7 catches a game, 50 yards, you know – he'd get in the end zone for you maybe once or twice. It's what he is. It's what he's been his entire career. I'm not saying he's going to go out there as a running back and give you RB1 numbers, but do you want 10 fantasy points a game from a guy that you're picking up on the waiver wire in week 11? Come on. Like obviously not everybody needs a Danny Woodhead role right now, but if you give me the choice between the two guys that we just talked about, I'm going to pick Danny Woodhead every single time.
I think Miles is actually listening to Slayer. I don't think he's listening to us at all right now. Like, he just got, like, some kind of angry music on right now.
Well, Miles never listens to me, so it doesn't matter.
All right, so that's kind of the feeling, kind of a lukewarm feeling on Danny Woodhead in this room for sure. So let's move on and talk about Robert Woods then. Wide receiver from the Rams. He's the leading pass catcher right now in that very prolific Rams offense. He's coming off of a 2-touchdown performance last week. Could he be kind of settling into the lead target role in that offense? Or is this kind of a flash in the pan kind of thing, and it's just going to be spread out in that offense?
I'm excited to talk about Robert Woods because this is Jerry Rice compared to the last conversation we just had.
Oh my
gosh.
It's ridiculous.
Stop it.
Honestly, I kind of like Robert Woods a lot because of all the things that you said. I mean, he is the leading receiver in a great offense, but what holds him back is until somebody keeps pace with them, they're not going to throw the ball that much. Like, Jared Goff, I believe, only had 14 completions. Like, 4 of them went for touchdowns. That's good. But, you know, you can't rely on that. They just don't have to throw the ball because Gurley's so good and they're so efficient as a whole. So I think, you know, hold your expectations of 2 touchdown games. Obviously, you can't expect that out of anybody, but I guarantee Robert Woods is a more valid fantasy player than a lot of teams have on their bench right now.
Yeah, and let me just say this before we move on. This is a total rabbit trail, but Draft Twitter, you can suck it, because these people that have been hating on Goff and Wentz and saying, you know, that they're overrated and whatever, and it's a system thing, they're nailing these guys because of what you said. Goff had 14 completions last week.
Right.
Wentz had 199 yards. Like, that's what the game script ended up being, because they were blowing teams out. Right. People are just trying to diminish what Goff is doing, what Wentz is doing, you know, 2 teams. But sometimes the numbers lie a little bit. Like, if the flow of the game only calls you to throw 14 times, that doesn't mean that you're any less dominant. So, I mean, my opinion on Robert Woods here is, like, if guys like Cooper Kupp and Sammy Watkins are owned in like 80% of leagues, it's a travesty that Robert Woods isn't similar. You know, at some point they're going to get into a game where they're going to have to air it out quite a bit. And I would like to be the beneficiary of that game with Robert Woods and all those lead targets personally.
Especially Watkins, because he had 1 catch.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was a big catch. I had Watkins in one of my FanDuel lineups, and I wasn't mad about him. You know what I mean? But yeah, I agree. Leave these quarterbacks alone. The 2 teams combined for 102 points, and none of that was on defense. Like, that was 102 offensive points, 8 passing touchdowns.
Yeah, leave them alone, because their combined team records is 14-3. So shut up. Yeah, but no, Woods has always been, like, since going back to college, Woods was supposed to be a very good wide receiver, and I think that gets lost, unfortunately, not to throw them under the bus, but that gets lost kind of playing in Buffalo, playing in cold weather, playing in an offense that's not built for that. I think, you know, he's absolutely as talented as some of the other guys who might have been drafted higher than him. but I don't see why not. I mean, especially if you're talking PPR, he definitely gets the most targets on that team. And for all the talk about, he only completed 14 passes. Well, because of how talented that group is, those 14 passes went for 311 yards. You know what I mean? So, I get the Wentz thing a little bit. All of his completions only went for 199, but 14 for 311, I'll take that all day long. So yeah, I'm in on Woods. I can get on board with that.
I love Woods. I was high on him early in the off season before they got Watkins and before we saw Cup. I had Robert Woods inside my top 20 because I thought he was going to be really good and I thought Goff was going to be really good. Now, I didn't think that they would have to tone back, like Miles said, where they're not having to pass that much. I thought he was going to pass more, but yeah, there are definitely worse options than Robert Woods. I like him a lot going forward here.
Let's talk about another wide receiver in a similar vein, kind of standing out right now on his team's offense. Obviously not as prolific of a pass attack, but Marquise Lee, we brought this name up a couple weeks ago, as an early name to consider before these bye weeks really kicked in. All he's done since then, the last 2 weeks, is get 17 catches and 230 yards in his past 2 games. Might be a little bit too late to get him, but is this a similar situation to Woods where like he's the lead receiver in that offense right now and you're interested in him?
I'm not, because you're pointing to the last 2 games, which a lot of times is enough to start a trend for me. But who didn't play in their last 2 games?
Fournette.
Leonard Fournette. So, I mean, game script with Fournette that's as 180 different as maybe any team in the league would have a different game script. Like maybe Pittsburgh
for sure
would feature well less. You know what I mean? But with Fournette out, they're reverting a little bit back to the play calling that they had the past 2 years. A bit more. Now, Bortles, as I said on my name drop power rankings here, is somewhere in between 2015 and 2016 guy. So Lee has some decent opportunities to actually score, not just chase down defensive backs who intercepted the ball. But with Fournette back, I don't really want that passing game at all.
I'm not sure I want Lee. I guess he's probably close to Robert Woods for me. But I agree with most of what you said. But in some regards, I also think that he will be more open because defense have to guard Leo more than they do any back they have. So I think he gets open some. Now, I don't think they're going to have as many target options, but I think he might have more good target options.
Yeah, it is almost like what we talked about preseason with Mike Evans, where he was going to lose some targets, but probably be a little bit more efficient with the targets he gets. So that's possible.
Yeah, and if we know anything about Blake Bortles, he needs all the help with efficiency he can get. So
yeah, he's not overly efficient.
My phone won't even name him. Like it automatically switches his name to Bottles. So, yep. I mean, that's everything you need to know.
I mean, it's the volume just isn't there when Leo's in the lineup. I mean, you got games 82 yards, 136 yards, 125 yards, even 211 yards. That's low by today's NFL standards. The volume is just not there in the passing game when Leo's in the lineup. So I agree with Miles. It's once Leo's back this week, it's going to be a heavy dose of Leonard Fournette.
All right, guys. And the last little topic here, just a public service announcement. Hearing some rumblings out of Charlotte, North Carolina, that Greg Olsen is going to be returning fairly soon from his injury. You're going to want to check that out in your league. If somebody dropped him to the waiver wire and you've been maybe looking for a tight end, or you have an opportunity to kind of stash for maybe a week or two here, but you want to keep an eye on that situation because by all accounts, Greg Olsen should be returning from his injury very shortly here. So consider that a public service announcement to you. All right, let's go into some of the bigger storylines around the league here. And we're going to tie in some fantasy football to this. I'm going to ask this question. I know how probably one person in the room feels. On the first one, are you going to make a move for Josh Gordon, or has that ship sailed at this point for you?
If it was any other team other than the Cleveland Browns, I might make a move. I don't think they're that good.
They weren't that good when he had 1,600 yards a few years ago either. Right.
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, he should be a target monster.
Yeah, I'm not calling for him to yards a game. But I mean, if we're talking about guys like Robert Woods and Marquise Lee, I definitely want Josh Gordon.
It's worth the flyer. Yep.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely worth a flyer. Look, the Browns don't have a whole lot going. So if you're going to put somebody who has that talent,
that was really nice.
there,
Thank you. I'm glad you said that like that. That was really polite. You don't have a whole lot going.
Well, I mean, they're going to get the number 1 pick. That's something. I mean,
again, it's been working so well for them, so they might as well roll with it.
Well, I mean, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, right?
The only thing we know for sure is if they have the number 1 pick and there's a quarterback there to take, they're not going to take him.
Only if it's an elite quarterback, though.
Only if it's Carson Wentz or Deshaun Watson or anyone else that they've passed up on.
Look, Josh Gordon, to me, like if Miles hit the nail on the head, if you're looking over the waiver wire for players and you're going to take a flyer on people, it might as well be Josh Gordon at this point. I mean, why not at least test the waters and see what happens with the situation? It's perfect timing to do it with buys coming to an end. You're probably not going to be counting on him. So, it's worth the risk to me. All right, let's move on to the next question here. Would you consider trading Zeke if the return was good enough? By now, nobody knows what to really expect with the Ezekiel Elliott saga. We expect to get some kind of a news this Thursday, whether or not the suspension is going to kick back in or he's going to be able to play for another week. But there is kind of that dark cloud hovering over where if this 6-game suspension kicks in, it's going to be through the entire fantasy playoffs at this point. So if you're a Zeke owner, are you looking to trade him if you can get the return, or are you going to ride it out and take your chances?
I mean, this not to take the easy answer, but I guess it depends on what the rest of my team looks like. But I would be willing, if obviously, like Gil always says, if the price is right, why not? But yeah, I mean, if he's one of 2, stud starting backs for you, and you can get a nice little haul here, for him. The problem is with that suspension looming, I don't know who's going to be really willing to take the risk unless that player also has the ability to possibly sit on him. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's too many factors here. I mean, at this point, he's going to serve a suspension. I don't think the NFL gives one inkling of care to whether or not he's going to miss fantasy playoff time, obviously. So at this point, if he's on your roster, try and get rid of him. Is the way I would word it. Don't give him away for nothing. But if he's on your roster right now, there's absolutely zero guarantee he's playing all 16.
I have him on a team where I'm 6-3 and right in the thick of things. And obviously everybody has a price, but you couldn't give me enough for him. It's kind of my point, barring obviously you're stupid for giving me this and this and this and this. He's not serving a suspension this year. He's just not. We've seen this with Tom. So is going to keep dragging on and on and on and on. They're going to have the whole offseason to do it. He'll miss the first 6 next year. You can write that down. That's my official prediction. I'm not going to watch this guy go to another team and light me up in the playoffs for what? For Julio Jones, who I hope accidentally scores this year? Like, what are you going to give me for Zeke Elliott when the Cowboys offense is clicking in a big way? And it's not just because they're throwing it around. He's the cog. They're back to what they were last year. Don't trade away a championship because you're nervous.
It's interesting. I've kind of held this belief that I'll believe it when I see it with the suspension.
Right. He's been suspended 3 times.
Right.
And has missed 0 seconds of gameplay.
I mean,
it's not going to hold.
And we're talking like late Friday where he's come off suspension. So, but it's crazy because in 2 different leagues that I'm in, I've now seen him in the past week be traded. So one, ironically enough, was straight up for Julio Jones, which is just a mind-boggling trade to begin with. The other was for another, receiver running back tandem, and I can't remember who it was, but in 2 separate leagues now, I've seen him traded. So there is some kind of, knee-jerk reaction out there, people not wanting to get burnt by, that him missing the playoffs. But I think you make the best point. If he's on your team and he's going to keep playing, I don't want to be beat by him in the playoffs because I got nervous.
He's
All right,
knocking you out.
so for our listeners at home, Miles, I'm going to point directly at you and South too, because you said it also. Why don't you guys give us a scenario of what it would take to trade Zeke at this point?
I do agree to a point that it depends on your roster, but you're giving me like Fournette, Gordon, Bell, like that, the same caliber running back. And that's what you're giving me. And I'll give you like my receiver 3 for your troubles. Like it's so rare to have a super stud running back in fantasy. I'm not giving you one because I'm scared he'll miss the playoffs. Because if he doesn't, I lost the championship.
Yeah, I think we'd all agree that he's going to be a top 3, top 4 guy the rest of the way.
So why would I not require one back?
What
I don't want 2 5s to equal my 10. Not now. Buys are over. I don't need 5s anymore. I need 10s.
If I was hurting somewhere and I knew I wasn't going to win in the playoffs because of it, and somebody could throw me back like a Brady or a top flight quarterback and another running back.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're not gonna get 2 5s, but do you personally take a 7 with a 7 quarterback?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm being stubborn, and it does depend on a lot of things. Your roster construction, it depends on, are you a game out of the playoffs and you need to make a push, and 2 players mean more to you than one. I mean, a general rule for me is if you're losing the best player in the trade, it's not a great trade for you.
I'll make a bold prediction for you. In the league we share, he's not getting traded.
Right, because he's on Deal's roster. And Deal, the league we share, he's not getting traded because he's on my roster.
Yeah, I think ultimately it just comes back to this. Like, it would be foolish because when you look at their schedule the rest of the way, like, yeah, they have 2 against the Eagles who have been really good against the run, but like you still have to, you still have to figure that he's going to be a top 3 option every single week. And you're just not going to get that in return. If somebody has one of those top options, number one, why are they going to try and trade for Zeke with you?
Right.
And number 2, like, I don't know, there has to be like something completely overwhelming to me to make that happen. And I just don't think people are going to be willing to do it. But worth exploring the discussion nonetheless, because I'm sure there are people out there who are balancing this out in their heads right now. All right, a little less fantasy related here, but I'm going to throw this out there. Give me the NFL Coach of the Year right now.
I feel like we could have like a nice hour-long discussion about this, so let's try and keep it short. I think there's a couple of guys right at the top that are definitely deserving of it. Doug Peterson is the coach of the best team in the league right now. I don't think a lot of people thought they would be there, so that's a good one. Sean Payton in New Orleans is having a very good season. I don't think a lot of guys expected them to be 6-2 at this point in the lead. I personally have to go with Sean McVay. That team was an absolute train wreck last year. There were jokes made at different points of the year about how this team, Gurley couldn't get it done. Gurley was looking like a bust in year 2. People were talking about Goff was a bust after, just like 6 or 7 games. The defense wasn't living up to potential. And now this is one of 2 teams that are probably going to be playing for the NFC Championship game. At one of 3 teams, I'll say, because I think, the Seahawks are going to be right there too, as well as the Eagles. But I got to go Sean McVay at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny. I think it's him by a lot. Go ahead, Miles.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you, and it's funny that I don't know that I say a lot because you are looking at, like, the Eagles already have more wins than they had last year, so that's a great job by him. But I think if you look at that roster, you're not shocked that they're improved. The Rams' major offensive addition this offseason was Andrew Whitworth, which is a big deal. He's a great tackle, but they've played 8 games, so half of last season's games. They've already scored 39 points than they scored all of last year. Like, that's insane. The improvement there is crazy. That you could tell me 16 games of the Rams, all you added was Whitworth and I guess like Cooper Kupp and Sammy Watkins, like little pieces, and all of a sudden you already have 39 points in 8 games than you had in 16 last year. That's scheme, man. That's scheme, and it's wanting to play hard for your coach, and it's not having Jeff Fisher anymore.
Yep.
They're not going effing 7-9.
Yeah, we're going to sweep the room here that I think it's McVay, because I think if I told you a year ago that in the next calendar year that the Rams would put up 50 burgers with frequency,
Right.
you probably
Right.
would have laughed me right out of the room.
Right.
And basically,
I'd be
with
like,
essentially
you
the same
mean
roster.
you mean in months, right? Like September they scored 50 couple, October they scored 50 couple.
Yeah.
Not in games.
It would have still been questionable.
I think one of the craziest things is that McVay has more 30-point games in 8 games with the Rams than Jeff Fisher did in his whole career with the Rams, or his last 8 years with the Rams, whatever it was. Some ridiculous stat that it's 67 games to 8, and McVay's already got it. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of deserving guys. I mean, I think it can't be understated what McDermott has done in Buffalo, what Todd Bowles is doing. I mean, not to throw it out there, but the Jets are supposed to be both of those teams are supposed to be 0 on the season right now.
Right.
One of them is 4-4, and the other one is 5-3 or whatever it is. Yeah, so yeah, I think credit goes after those teams. There's a lot of deserving guys right now. A lot of guys with really low expectations that have at least made something out of their season, and a lot of guys with almost no expectations like McVay, and sitting at top of their division.
Is Chuck Pagano close?
No,
not.
Oh, okay.
To being fired, yes.
Oh, that's actually what I meant.
The scariest part here about Sean McVay, and I don't want to keep lauding this guy and go overboard, but he would be the youngest person in this conversation if he was here. That's kind of the craziest part.
Yeah, that's nuts.
My man is 31.
None of us are old people.
No, right. And we're talking about he's 31. He is part of the class of 2004, I bet, from high school. And he's talking about him being the best coach in professional football. People who have been doing this for longer than he's been alive. That's how much of a genius prodigy this guy is.
Tom Brady came into the league 3 years before Sean McVay graduated high school. Right. What?
That's wild.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm just going to throw this out there. He's only a year younger than me, so
watch it.
You shut your mouth.
All right. Hey, guys, following the same rules that we would typically use for our Goons and Ghosts for our players of the week, goon a team for the second half of the 2017 season. So a team kind of has higher expectations right now who you think is going to drop off or finish worse than anticipated.
So wait, hold on. We're gooning now.
Yeah, we're doing
so we're going higher than expected.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yep,
right.
I was reading the wrong line. Yep.
I'm gonna go with the San Francisco 49ers. I love the trade for Jimmy Garoppolo.
They're gonna win a game.
But I think they're gonna play their way out of the top 5 in the draft.
Wow.
Yeah. I can absolutely see them ending this season. What would it be like? 5-2. 5-2. I bet they can finish at 5-2 with Jimmy Garoppolo. Starting this week, guarantee, write it down, they're getting their first win against the Giants. Ooh. It makes me so happy to say it. The 1-7 Giants.
I'm so happy right now.
Well, mine doesn't seem as absurd now because thanks, Miles. But I picked the Chargers. I think that they still have a good squad. The offense is kind of starting to click. It seems like the offense and defense can never get on the same page with those guys. If one's playing well, the other can't. Or sometimes they just both play terrible. But I don't think that's going to happen. The rest of their season isn't too bad. The Bills, as we just covered, are getting better. But they play the Jags, the Bills. Cowboys will beat them. The Browns, the Redskins, the Chiefs, which you never know. Even if the Chiefs are better, you never know in that game. The Jets and the Raiders the same way. So I think going from here on out, they could easily win 6 of the next 8 games and could really take off from here and actually have a chance to win that division. I think it's still the Chiefs division, but if they would for some reason tail off, like Alex Smith remembers he's Alex Smith, that could happen. So yeah, I picked the Chargers to actually make the playoffs, whether wild card or winning their division.
or if the Chiefs just continue to give Kareem Hunt 9 touches.
Yeah,
that could happen too.
My goon will directly reflect my ghost. But since we have to go goon first, I'm going to go with the Oakland Raiders outside of the playoffs right now at 4-5, looking in. I think this team had a really big hiccup in the beginning of the year, and they had a little bit of an identity crisis about what they were going to be. I think we're going to see that turn around now. The defense obviously has to be addressed. But you know what? This is the same defense they had last year that started off really slow, and then as the year went on, got better and better and better. And I think we can see that happen for them as well. Carr's back healthy. Cooper and Crabtree are on the field. I think they got too into Marshawn Lynch in the beginning of this season because of name, but I think we saw a healthy dose of all 3 running backs last week, granted against a pretty terrible Miami team. But I think you see all 3 of those backs in a nice rotation now to go along with the fact that Carr is still Carr and Crabtree and Cooper are still Crabtree and Cooper. Jared Cook got really involved. So I think I like the Oakland Raiders to make a very strong push to actually take over that division. And actually, I like them to win that division.
I'm also on the Chargers. I'm going to agree with Deal here. I just think that they're a very good team still to this point. I had them as a playoff team to start the season. I got a little scared with the way they started. But when you look back at those games, I mean, they were in and competitive with some pretty good teams right out of the gate there. So I really am convinced still the Chargers can be a winning team, be a playoff team. I think the schedule is going to fall in their favor here coming down the stretch. So I like the Chargers as well. All right, now we're going to do the opposite and ghost a team for the second half of the season. So go ahead and ghost a team for the second half.
Well, I said my ghost was, contradictory to my goon. So you guys probably know where I'm going with this. The 6-3 Kansas City Chiefs, they're kind of, I don't want to say spiraling out of control because they've played some really tough matchups in the last couple of weeks. But based on the way they were playing in the beginning of the season, they should have been running through those teams. And it seems like they're giving away games. You can't – Kareem Hunt has to have more than 9 touches. He has to have more than 9 touches. And for some reason, they're just not doing it. They're letting all the other circumstances of the game dictate what they do instead of the other way around, which is what they were doing for the first 6 games of the season. They really lack a true number 1 receiver. Tyreek Hill is a nice gadget player, but it is what he is, and until they can kind of develop they used to have this bend but don't break philosophy on defense. They would give up a ton of yards, but they would keep you out of the end zone. Well, they're not keeping teams out of the end zone now. They're bending and breaking. So I think we're going to see a reverse of the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think they're going to go 3-6 going out, but definitely on the downslide. And I think the Raiders overtake them actually for the division.
I'll go ahead. I have the Vikings. I said early on that I didn't think they were that good, and now their offense is way worse than when I said that. I know their defense is still good. I know the Packers are, essentially done now. The Bears stink, but unlike what I said about the Chargers, I think that the Vikings could lose 6 of the next 8. So they'll probably still win the division. You never know. The Lions, they're a mystery too. So, but I think the Lions will overtake that division. The Vikings are on the outside.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with a shocker for anybody who knows like teams that I like and teams that I like to follow. I'm going with Seattle as my ghost here.
Wow.
They're sitting at 5-3 right now. And, it is a wow statement until you really break down what they've been doing this year. They started 1-2, and I chalked that up along with a lot of people to they're just a slow starting team. But part of that, you lost to Green Bay, you lost to Tennessee. You only beat San Francisco by 3 at home. And the big part of what makes Seattle great is at home. And you can't touch them in Seattle. Well, at home, they beat San Francisco by 3, who's 0-9. You destroyed the Colts. I'm not going to take that away from you, but that was ugly. You beat a rookie quarterback in Houston by 3, and then you just lost to Washington at home. So they've lost some of this mystique. I'm not sure teams are as scared of them as they've been. But more importantly, on the back end of the schedule here, you have Arizona twice, who I think is supremely average, but always plays Seattle well. They have a desperate Atlanta team. They have San Francisco, who I already told you is going to win out. All right, maybe that's a little bit overboard. All right, but then 4 consecutive weeks, you have Philadelphia at Jacksonville, Los Angeles Rams at Dallas. That's a tough, tough stretch for a team that has looked nowhere near as dominant as we expect. I actually think the Seahawks are going to miss the playoffs.
Great minds think alike. All right, because
said the
I also
Vikings?
had the Seattle Seahawks. And one of the things that I wrote down on my paper is that the mystique is gone from the home field advantage. That's exactly what you said.
You can't write this stuff down, people. You can't plan this out.
Nope. It's not like we had a pre-show and threw out the word mystique and said, let's agree on mystique. That didn't happen.
Yeah, because Rocco and I would have made fun of you.
Yes. I would have asked if we were talking about Rebecca Romaine.
Listen, the bottom line here is that there are easily 4 or 5 losable games now for the Seahawks, who are, at this point, not quite what we expected of them. I had them winning the Super Bowl. You can't win the Super Bowl if you can't block anybody. So when you look at some of the games coming up on the schedule here, Atlanta, Miles touched on it, they're going to be desperate to get back in it. They can rush the passer a little. You got the Eagles. That front 7 is ferocious. You got Saxonville. How are you even going to think about stopping Saxonville? The Rams, the Cowboys, who have a leading sack producer on their team at this point. So you got big trouble for Russell Wilson, even for as mobile as he is, if you can't start to protect him a little bit. And I just don't think that they can at this point. I think they're a 9-7 team. And I think that with the way the Rams are playing, that's got them on the outside looking in. So I'm going with the Seahawks as well.
How crazy is it 2 weeks ago when they scored, 41 points, that Eddie Lacy had 6 carries for 0 yards, and he was better than Thomas Rawls with 6 carries with -1.
I mean, that's just another.
That line is unbelievable.
Yep. All right, guys, we got to take a quick pause here, and I'm going to throw this question out here, guys. Have you heard about the social media movement that is taking over? Everywhere I look, I see it. I see it on Facebook. I see it on the Twitter. I see it on Instagram. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. I'm talking about our friends at Gorb. I noticed that you guys are rocking the Gorb wear. There it is. You guys can see it if you're watching live on YouTube right now. Gorb is the social media movement that is taking over. I see it everywhere, like I said. And the cool thing about it is that you can get all this cool swag like these guys have on tonight at GHORBH.com. Because it's a constant reminder that in life, you've only got 2 choices. You can either get hungry and chase after your dreams, or you could be hungry and just keep wishing that you were going after what you wanted. And the cool thing about this gear is that you could be reminded every single day with all different kinds of styles, all different colors, all designs, different kinds of hoodie designs and things like that. You know, Miles and Deal have the hockey style hoodie on tonight. I go for the more traditional look. No matter what you get, though, number one, you're going to know that it's stylish. You're going to know that it's comfortable, and you're going to know that you're going to look and feel good in it, just like these 3 fly fellows are looking right now in their Gorb wear. All right, so check it out, GHORBH.com. Go on social media, search the hashtag Gorb, GHORBH, and you'll see the movement that is taking over social media.
You know, the only thing that I hate about this hockey style neck is how it makes me hate every other one of my hoodies, because I want every hoodie to be like this that I have.
It's stupid.
That's the truth.
And it's very comfortable.
It's the best.
That's super soft.
Yep. All right, guys, let's talk about Goons and Ghosts for Week 10 specifically here. Obviously, Goons are the guys that we're starting and expecting them to outperform where they are currently ranked. Ghosts are guys that we're going to try and maybe get out of our lineup or temper our expectations on, who are ranked a little bit higher heading into Week 10, and we just don't believe they're going to live up to that expectation. So, Rocco, get us started with your goon for Week 10.
All right, my goon for Week 10 is Ben Roethlisberger, quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming at you this week at QB number 9. listen, Ben no longer wants to retire. This is a good thing. As a matter of fact, a lot of people in the industry think that the Steelers are probably the favorites to win the AFC right now and head to the All-Pennsylvania Bowl. All right? Ben gets the benefit this week of going against the worst pass secondary in football. Sorry, Deal. The Indianapolis Colts are dead last in total passing yards. They're second to last in passing yards given up per game. They've given up 13 passing touchdowns per year. But surprisingly, the Colts have come in and improved their run defense and gotten into the top 20, albeit, not great, but better. I think they're going to try and shut down Lev Bell as much as possible and make Ben beat them. And you know what? He's going to the tune of 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. All right, so Ben Roethlisberger up from QB9 this week as my goon of the week.
All right, my goon this week is going to contradict everything that Miles is believing for his 49ers. That's Eli Manning, who is currently quarterback 16 heading into week 10. Quarterback 16, and it should tell you everything you need to know about how people feel about Eli right now, that 6 teams are on a bye this week, and he's still quarterback 16. So obviously, this has been a brutal year for the Giants. I'm kind of happy about it, to be honest with you. And knucklehead Ben McAdoo is out there talking about how it might be time to sit down Eli Manning to kind of see what this team has moving forward. Well, I don't know if you know anything about the Mannings, but they don't need a whole lot of extra motivation on top of their personal drive that they've already got. So luckily this week, they draw the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners have surrendered 257 pass yards per game and 2 touchdowns this season as their averages. Eli should, in theory, be motivated to make a point to his coach, to the league, and to everybody in the media who's kind of been calling for him to maybe, this is it for him. It's his curtain call. I think he's going to be driven to make a point this week. This is the kind of guy that he is. He's not going to come out and say it, but he's always kind of acted in that manner. When not playing Seattle or Denver this year, Eli is averaging 260 yards per game and 2 touchdowns, which is ironically just about identical to what San Francisco is giving up for the year. I like Eli to go for 285 and 3 touchdowns this week and clearly not be quarterback 16 this week. He is my goon for this week. Deal, who's your goon?
My goon this week is CJ Anderson, running back number 26. Listen, CJ, he was terrible last week. So why would I pick him as my goon this week? Well, here's a few reasons why. Number one, because we don't judge future success by running backs getting dominated by the Eagles' rush defense, because they've done that to everybody. Number two, because I didn't forget that the 3 times this season the Broncos featured CJ, he had 88 yards, 154 yards, and 112 yards. And I'm counting on Vance to remember that too. Number 3, the Patriots have given up the 6th most points to running backs this season, and they continue to struggle against them every week. So I think this is going to be another one of those. And number 4, CJ Anderson's still a really good running back that the world seems to have forgotten about. I didn't. I like CJ this week, 123 total yards, at least 1 score. He might get in twice if we keep Jamal Charles off the field where he belongs. CJ Anderson, my goon of the week.
Vance Joseph, he's having the time of his life.
Oh, man.
All right, Miles, who is your goon this week?
Yeah, I'm rolling with wide receiver number 21 on the board, New York Jets Robbie Anderson, as my goon of the week. He's going up against Tampa Bay secondary that has given up the 2nd most points to wide receivers. For those of you unsure about Robbie Anderson, he's kind of that deep threat burner type. Let me read you the list of names who have destroyed Tampa. Deontay Thompson, deep threat, burner type. Stephon Diggs, more of a complete receiver, but still that guy. Thielen killed him. Beckham Jr. killed him, certainly complete. Chris Hogan killed him, deep threat. John Brown scored a touchdown, deep threat. Deontay Thompson, the 2nd time, got him again. All right, Ted Ginn Jr. scored. They can't cover fast receivers. Robbie Anderson, not slow. That's not part of his game, going slow. On top of that, he's developing a really nice rapport with Josh McCown, who is more than fantasy relevant for those of you being ignorant to it. Robbie scored 3 weeks in a row here for the Jets. I like him to do it twice this week. I'm giving Robbie Anderson 6 catches for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. Well ahead of wide receiver 21. I think he creeps into the top 10 this week.
I get so amped up when you talk about Robbie Anderson. You know the way to my heart.
All right, let's talk about ghosts before this gets getting weirder.
Yeah, really.
I'll go first here. My ghost this week, sticking with kind of that controversial player theme, controversial statement theme that we've kind of got going this week. I'm going with Todd Gurley, who is currently running back 3 this week. Look, it's been a resurgence for Todd Gurley this season. There's no doubting that at all. Sean McVay has made it a point to get him more involved in both elements of the offensive attack. He's doing it receiving, rushing the ball right now. The Texans, though, are surprisingly great against opposing running backs this year, even with the massive amount of injuries that defense has just kind of taken on and consumed at this point. Only Leonard Fournette has a rushing touchdown against them this year, which is crazy to think about. That happened in week 1. They're giving up 74 yards per game to opposing running backs. The backs this year have 3 receiving touchdowns against them, but they're scattered out all throughout the season, and they're really on kind of like dinky little plays. So I don't think you're going to get a huge splash play necessarily out of Gordon for a receiving touchdown here based on that trend. They're only giving up 28 yards per game receiving to opposing running backs. So they have made it a point to just take the opposing team's running back completely out of the game plan to the best of their ability. I think this is a game where Todd slides down, maybe to like that 12 or 13 range. So I would definitely say this is a temper your expectations type scenario with Todd Gurley. I do not believe he's a running back 3 this week. I've got him for 79 rushing yards, 16 receiving yards. He does not get in the end zone this week. Todd Gurley is my ghost. Deal, who do you got for us?
My ghost this week is Cam Newton, currently ranked quarterback number 5. Cam and the Panthers, they've had a strange season this year, and he started out with 3 pretty bad performances. Then for 3 games, he looked like the 2015 Cam. He pretty much dominated, and we're like, yeah, Cam's back on track again, and now he's been poor again. 3 weeks ago, he had 9 points, which isn't that good for any position. Really bad for the quarterback position. Then for the last 2 weeks, he's had 19 and 15. Not terrible, but in those weeks, he's only thrown for 154 and 137, and his rushing really saved him. So I don't look for his rushing to be great this week, and I look for his passing to still be pretty bad. Overall, Cam just hasn't been consistent enough to rank him in the top 5. He's only ever played the Dolphins 1 time. It was back in 2013, but I like him to have very comparable numbers. I like him for 219 total yards, and I do like him to get 2 scores, but I like to see him turn the ball over 3 times. I wouldn't like it, but it's going to happen. He's going to be outside the top 10 this week, and he is my ghost.
All right, Miles, who do you got for us?
I'm going with Michael Thomas, receiver for the Saints. He is pre-ranked number 4 this week. That seems to be the story for him, and people are just waiting for him to live up to this second-round draft potential that he gave everybody. He's going up against the Bills this week, who have allowed only 4 touchdowns to receivers and only 2 receivers to get 90 or more yards. Those guys that are playing well, Demaryius Thomas, A.J. Green, and Mike Evans definitely had like the big 3 games, and he's in their caliber to an extent. But Drew Brees is in full spread it around mode like he was the last time the Saints were really, really good. Michael Thomas pre-ranked 4 is laughable, if for no reason other than he has 1 top 10 finish this year, and that was he finished 5th week 4. He only has 2 touchdowns. It's kind of like what Deal was saying about Cam the last couple weeks. He's playing okay. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to get 2 catches on Sunday, but to expect him to deliver wide receiver 1 numbers is ridiculous to me. I'm going to go ahead and give him about his season average I'll give him 6 catches for 65 yards. No touchdowns is the key. He will not score.
All right, Rocco, who's your ghost for us this week? You're on mute.
I got you. I got DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver of the Houston Texans, as my ghost this week. Listen, no Watson means no Hopkins for me. I understand that last week without Watson, he went 6 for 86 in a score. Deal, I hate to keep doing this to you. He was playing the Colts, folks, all right? That almost doesn't count, okay? This week he got to go up against the Rams D, who's a little bit better than the Colts. They're 9th best against the pass. They're giving up 75 less yards per game as a whole unit than the bottom half, than the Colts and the Patriots and some of the other bad teams down there. All this spells trouble for Hopkins. I can't see him getting in the end zone this week. I think he's going to continue to struggle, as are the Texans, with life after Watson. And wide receiver 5 is just too high a ranking for a guy who's going to see his fair share of struggles going forward.
All right, let's finish out this week with our daily fantasy football best values. So what we're doing here, obviously, is finding a guy who's going to cost you significantly less than the top guys at their position, but who we believe is going to give you a very good return on your smaller investment. So most likely free up some cash space for you to use somewhere else on your roster. Deal, start us off with your daily value.
My daily value this week is Corey Davis for $5,800. He is my daily value. I love him for a big game this week, and he's currently ranked wide receiver 33 if you go down FanDuel's charts. And he goes up against Cincy this week, who have been surprisingly pretty good against wide receivers, actually. But most of that's because they've been good against 2, 3, and 4 wide receivers, while the number 1 wide receivers have had pretty good games against them. And he only played 39 snaps last week, which isn't much. For some comparison, DeAndre Hopkins, Jordan Matthews, Will Fuller, and Allen Hurns all played 71 snaps in comparison to his 39. So he didn't play a lot of snaps. He's kind of getting work back in, but it didn't look like his hamstring was hampering him at all. And this week, similar to Cam, Marcus Mariota has been pretty inconsistent, or maybe worse, he's been consistently average to bad. But I really like him to take off this week to where we all kind of thought and where the market kind of thought he was going to be this season. And a big reason for that's Corey Davis. I like him for 9 receptions, 104 yards, which, get this, will be the Titans' first 100-yard receiver of the season, which is crazy. 9 receptions, 104 yards, and a score. And you're going to get a good return on your investment.
All right, Miles, who do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm actually going to stick same position and really similar price point. I'm going with the Giants' Sterling Shepard for $5,700. You know, I'm finding the more I play daily, and it's not about taking this $5,700 guy and getting 40 points out of him. We kind of consider as a group $500 per point is excellent return on your value. If you do that, you're in great shape to win a lot of tournaments, a lot of your cash gains, not so much the tournaments, but all I would need there is 11.4 points. Sterling came out last week in his return from injury. You know, he put together a solid 5 for 70 outing against the Rams, who are a pretty tough defense to do anything against. He gets to go against San Francisco this week. All jokes aside, they're not great. All right, they're not great. They're playing better than they were in the early part of the year, but you know, they allowed 400-yard receivers already this year. They've allowed 9 touchdowns to wide receivers. Sterling, you know, he's still actually kind of second fiddle on the team there behind Evan Ingram in targets and maybe even production, but I do like him to score this week. I'm going to give him 6 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. Not amazing numbers by any means, but that is 18 points on your FanDuel. You can get those mid to low tier players scoring those kind of points. You're in the money.
All right, Rocco, who do you got for us this week?
This week, I like Christian McCaffrey of the Carolina Panthers at 6,400. Listen, FanDuel going to standard half-point PPR is making me love CMC, okay? Here's the complete list of players who have more catches through this point of the season than Christian McCaffrey. Antonio Brown, Jarvis Landry. I'm done, all right? That's insane, okay? Not to mention the fact that those two guys are both targeted over 20 times more than CMC has been this season. And Christian only has 3 less catches than Brown and 2 less than Landry. Listen, I know he's a running back. I know we're supposed to look at rushing yards, okay? But they're using him in every fashion of the game. He's not getting a ton of rushing yards, so don't expect that. He's going to give you a very Danny Woodhead-like game line from 3 years ago. I said that just for Miles. Had to get to dig it.
So he's a guarantee not to score a touchdown, so don't say touchdown.
No, he's going to give you a very solid 7 for 75 through the air, and then whatever rushing he gives you sprinkled in his bonus. He's found the end zone the last 2 weeks, so maybe he's a step up from Woodhead in that regard. But listen, he also has the benefit of playing a Miami team who, although is ranked very high on defense, in the past 3 weeks since we've started to see that team fall apart, has been very mediocre against the running back. 3 weeks ago against the Jets, 84 combined yards on the ground, another 81 in the air just to running backs. 2 weeks ago against the Ravens, 168 on the ground, another 45 through the air. Last week, 87 on the ground, nothing through the air really, but 2 rushing touchdowns given up. The Dolphins are in bad shape, and listen, this is the Panthers know now that they have to get Christian involved in the passing game. Obviously, the rushing stats might not be there, but he is essentially their number 1 receiver. He's giving you number 1 receiver targets and catches, obvious by the point that the only 2 guys ahead of him are Antonio Brown and Jarvis Landry, the 2 most targeted guys in the NFL. All right, so Christian McCaffrey for 6,400. It seems crazy, but he's going to give you wide receiver number 1 production from the running back spot.
Hi, hey, I'll tell you what, you get Rocco talking about his man crush. You never know. All right, I'm going to round us out this week here. I'm thinking along the similar lines here that Miles was earlier with, this Jets matchup. I'm going with Jermaine Kearse. 6. Jeremy Curley has been a pretty versatile Jets passing attack to this point. Is going to have some opportunities open up. I know Jeremy Curley is not like a target eater or anything like that, but somebody's going to have to take over those couple of targets and those deep balls especially. Jermaine Kearse, when he's made a splash this year in fantasy relevant situations, it's been on that deep ball, those splash plays, so to speak. He's averaging 14 yards per carry, and he's a candidate for those big splash plays, obviously. The Bucs are giving up 13 yards per catch this season and are very obviously prone to the deep ball at this point. I kind of rode my Ted Ginn pick last week. It worked out for me against them. I'm thinking along the same lines here. Over the past 5 weeks, the Bucs are giving up an average of 40 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receiver units. The Jets are going to be able to have their opportunities against them. So to me, why not take a flyer again on a guy who's a candidate for those big plays to hit a home run ball this week? I believe he's going to. I've got him for 3 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. That's enough to return your investment, as Miles highlighted early on, to get you in that high teens number in FanDuel points and make it more than worth your $6,000. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it for this week's edition of the show. Hopefully, you're in a good position with your fantasy team moving forward here. You're looking at the playoffs. Hopefully you're not like me in the only league that I care about, where you're on the outside looking in right now. And on the ones that you don't care about so much, you're doing pretty well. Regardless, we're hoping that everybody is going to get a shot at the playoffs here that have been dedicated to their teams. So be sure to stay tuned to footballgoons.com for all of our updates each and every week. As we've highlighted and we hinted at earlier in the pod, Miles puts up his power rankings early every single week. You could check those out on the website, only available at footballgoons.com. There's always excellent write-ups, excellent analysis in there. And this week I've got my own little special edition power rankings, power ranking Thanksgiving traditions. So you're going to want to check those out as well. They're pretty controversial. So looking for your feedback on those. Check us out at facebook.com/footballgoons. On the Twitter, we are at Football Goons. and right here on our YouTube channel, where you can subscribe and comment to all of our videos. We always try to hit you guys back on social media when you reach out to us. So keep those comments coming, keep the questions coming, and we will be reaching back out to you guys as soon as we can. We'll catch you next time.